And speaking of mind-body medicine, this morning we have a wonderful, reputable guest on the show, the lovely Irina Webster. Good morning, Irina.
Good morning, Jodie. Good morning, Stu.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So, Irina, we've obviously known each other for some time, and your title, I guess, is a medical intuitive. Is you know how you're now known, but it's not how you've always been known. And I love hearing your story. I've heard it so many times, and I never get sick of hearing it. So, would you like to share your story with the listeners?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jodie. Well, now I'm a medical intuitive or intuitive healer, you can call me. Well, I really prefer to call myself medical intuitive. But my background is I was a medical doctor for more than 10 years of my life. And I started my journey not in Australia. As you can hear my accent, I come from Russia. So if you question where I come from, yes, I come from Russia. I born in Russia and grew up there. I finished medical school in Russia, and I graduated as a pediatrician and practiced as a pediatrician for 9 years until I come to Australia because I married in Australia in 2001. When I came to Australia, I did medical exams to practice medicine again in Australia, and I passed all exams, and I worked in the Canberra hospital for 3 years as a doctor in Canberra hospital, until a certain event in my life, which was my breakthrough, I call it. And this breakthrough was my personal health challenge. Yes, the job was very stressful for me, and I had many things happening in my life, like I was recently divorced, and all the stress of immigration and learning new language put my health in a lot of problems. Yeah. And actually, once I was told to have a surgery for a certain condition which involved bleeding. But when I was sitting in a doctor's office, something quite extraordinary happened to me. I heard an inner voice, and this was a very subtle voice, very reassuring voice. The voice which gave me certainty, I would say. And this particular voice told me, just don't go, don't go, don't go. And being an intuitive person, and I've always been an intuitive person, I've always been very sensitive. I sensed energy around people since I remember myself. As a little girl, I was sensing different things about people. So as an intuitive person, I decided to listen to my voice. I didn't argue with my doctor. I took a referral for surgery. But only what I wanted to do at this time, just put myself into a healing state. Because I already knew what healing state is for me.
So you knew that just intuitively at the time, you know, to understand and hear that journey. What I love about that is, as you said, you know, growing up in Russia, looking at, you know, studying medicine, become a doctor, practicing as a pediatrician. We're just talking, you know, science, you know, all just, you know, really classic kind of history. And then, you know, your love life brings you to a new country. Stress increases because obviously you've got the pressure of having to learn a new language, and as you said, the immigration, getting to know a new town. Canberra drivers can be stressful, as Stu always reminds us.
Yes.
And I remember you talking about specifically another one of your workshops. you described the stress in the hospital, you know, you were in the emergency department, weren't you? I think.
Yeah, I did rotations at the time for 3 years. As a new doctor, you have to do rotations for several years until you get to specialize in one area. So I worked in emergency, I worked in, you do rotation for 3 or 4 months, then you change.
So that itself, I mean, not even every 3 to 4 months having to then move into a different department,
That's right.
and then, you know, obviously try to build networks with the existing doctors and existing medical staff, all of that, it would have been a really highly stressful time. And then, as you said, the relationship broke down. So then you're going through a divorce, which is obviously emotionally traumatic.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden you find out that your health has suffered, and it would have been, I'm assuming, quite a shock, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then having the diagnosis and being told, you know, Irina, it's your turn to be the patient. You'd think that many people would think, well, I'm science trained and I'm a medical doctor, and yes, I should just do what I'm told and I should go and have this surgery. But it was that point in your life where you just went, no, like everything inside you just went, don't do it. So you took the referral and you went home.
Yes.
And, you know, what did you do from there?
Well, like I said, I've been an intuitive person for all my life, and I did practice meditation, and I studied intuition already before this happened. So I came home, and I just really had a desire to experience a vibrational state. I call it vibrational state. People call it meditation, but for me it's not normal meditation. Because for most people, meditation is just relaxation. You just relax. But I take much further than that. I go much deeper into my body and start experiencing the vibrations of my cells. You know, if you break down our body into smallest particles possible, like you break down into molecules, you can break down molecules into atoms, and you can break down atoms into energy. So basically, we all consist just from energy. And what I do when I meditate or experience this vibrational state is I start to sense vibrations of my body cells, and in particularly the cells of the organ which I need to heal. And you can sense these vibrations or subtle body energy in any particular body part you want. Any. And since you start to sense this subtle body energy in a particular organ, you can heal it. You can heal the flow, you can sense anything precisely to the point that you start to see the organs from inside. I call it inner eye.
The inner eye, yeah.
Inner eye, which actually we all can, we all have, we are all born with inner eye. The other point that we are not told, we are not taught how to practice it. But we all have it. And we all can go inside our body and see what's going on and heal ourselves. But we are not taught from school, from places we go to study, nobody tell us.
Well, modern medicine tells us the exact opposite.
That's right.
You know, modern medicine tells us that our health is not our responsibility. Modern medicine tells us that our health is genetic or it's hereditary. So if you've got these conditions in your family, well, most likely you're going to get them, which in some sense creates this sense of irresponsibility, because it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I do if I take care of my health or not, because I'm preconditioned to potentially have these illnesses. Modern medicine tells us if you're sick, you go to a doctor, and the doctor says you need surgery, and you get the surgery. I mean, that's how we've been brought up, that's how we've been conditioned. And, you know, I think that it's absolutely amazing that to have someone as yourself who's been through that journey and had the education, and I'm sure at one point in your life you would have believed modern medicine was the cure and the only answer. However, in this beautiful sort of moment of enlightenment, you've kind of had this truth come in that taught you about your own ability to heal, not as a medical doctor, but as an individual and, you know, as an intuitive individual. So I think that's absolutely such an amazing story.
So how do you find the balance in it though? Because I mean, it was a success story for you, but I suppose you have to be a little bit careful, don't you, on what you recommend or what course of action other people take? Because if they're not as good as you meditating and talking to their cells, I suppose modern medicine still has some role. Is that right in what you do?
I always tell people that I never advise to anybody disregard opinion of their doctor. We all must go to doctor, and I went to doctor. I went to my colleague to find out what's wrong with me. It is other things that I can tune into my body. Because I taught myself, I do believe in it. But we all have inborn ability to go inside our body and heal ourselves. It's what I'm talking about, that most people still, like Jodie said, rely on external factors. External factors, that something external, like a surgery or a drug, will fix them. And completely ignore the internal factors. And healing comes from internal factors. Healing and curing are not the same. What I'm talking about here is about healing and not curing. But curing can follow the healing. And I just right now I want to explain the difference between healing and curing. Curing the disease, a cure, means disappearance of all symptoms. And normally from Western medicine point of view, curing involves an external factor, like a drug or surgery. Something external and create disappearance of all symptoms. But healing completely depends on your inner power, your inner sources. And healing means releasing the fears associated with the condition. Complete detach yourself from fears, so there is no fears involved.
Which is difficult because when people are often diagnosed, as you said, with any kind of condition, fear is, I would say, the first emotion that comes up. It's fear for life. It's fear for, am I going to get better? Can I recover from this? And when you actually share a lot of illnesses with, friends and colleagues, fear often is the first emotion that other people will, pick up. You've got this. You've been diagnosed with this. So fear is ever present, I would say, immediately upon discovering that there's, a diagnosis. I guess a medical diagnosis. But I think, in my mind, the medical industry has proven this ability for the mind and for the body to heal itself, and it's called the placebo effect. It's been studied. There's medical journals written about these miraculous healing experiences whereby people have been diagnosed with these things and have been prescribed sugar pills and have had the same, if not an improved, recovery rate from people who, in fact, were given the actual drug, the actual chemical. So that, to me, is where understanding the placebo effect is where my fascination with the mind-body relation came in, because the placebo effect from a medical, focal point has always been this unexplainable phenomenon. What is it? How do these people heal? And I guess, as you said, this is an aspect where you have that power over yourself to potentially make those changes. And yes, a really good point, Stu, that obviously you do need to, for anyone listening, you do need to obviously have that balance and also take that responsibility. I mean, Irina, having studied, I guess the body and anatomy and physiology for many years and having practiced, would have had a really detailed understanding of the human body. So for you, I imagine going and imagining the vibration or the appearance of, say, the liver or the stomach to you would probably be like, any of us, imagining what a house looks like, because we're really familiar with that. But if you don't have that really detailed understanding, I can assume it might be difficult for some people to, to begin with. You'd have to do probably.
Or you take a wrong turn and
you're healing the spleen.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, knowing the anatomy of the organ you're dealing with is actually a really powerful factor.
Yeah.
And when clients come to me for intuitive healing, I always recommend them, or even just teach them, show them the basic anatomy of the organ they're dealing with. And I always tell them, like, look, if you're dealing with your knee, for example, look up on Google or get an anatomy book and look up the anatomy of your knee or liver or whatever you're dealing with. And so it helps you to visualize and go inside this organ and sense the subtle body energy. And another word I want to say about the fear. When I say releasing the fears, yes, these fears can be related to the fear of the diagnosis. But more importantly, when I say about the fears, it's also releasing the emotional patterns which brought you to this condition. Because how I see, from intuitive perspective, how I see the illness, any illness. Illness from a Western medicine perspective, Eastern is an enemy. Eastern, which is something we need to kill, eradicate, completely, like it's perceived as its enemy. But from intuitive perspective, illness, it is your body language. Because your body speaks to you through pains and aches, symptoms and illnesses, and through feelings and emotions too. But symptoms and any diagnosis, it's your body saying to you, look, this is the consequences of your emotional pattern you've been running your life on. And when I'm saying this, it's not just random emotions that comes and go. Random emotions, fine. But what I'm talking about, emotional patterns, and we all have emotional patterns. Like emotional patterns of jealousy or self-criticism. Or minimization, when you feel yourself continuously inferior to other people.
And I completely agree, and I've experienced that in my own life in generally, that I've never really come across any ailment in my body personally that I haven't been able to link back to a belief system or a prolonged emotional belief or programming or something. So I for me, I get it, and I agree. Whenever I have an illness or a pain or an ache, first thing I do is go into that myself and look at what is happening with me mentally and emotionally at the time. Second thing I do is reach for your book, or reach for even the Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. That's got some great stuff in it to look at then what's some other opinions might be about that ailment or that illness. And to me, between first my own wisdom, second referencing something else, I generally have been able to find the metaphysical or the energy or the emotional reason behind that. That doesn't mean I don't go to a doctor. Often I will. Often I will look into it myself. Often I will go to a doctor and still seek an opinion around that or seek some advice. But 9 times out of 10, I generally find that I can heal that and actually learn and actually remove that from myself by installing these kind of, I guess, these techniques and this ability to actually tune into the body and go, okay, well, what is it you're saying to me? And the body's an amazing thing. I mean, it really is, the way that it can where it sort of manifests these aches and pains and illnesses really does tell a tale of your life. And you know, as I said, you have published obviously multiple books, and one of my favourites, it's my Bible really, it's The Secret Energy of Your Body. And that book is not only goes through every single basically body part that you could possibly want to look at, but it also goes through the
organs and emotions.
Organs and emotions. And to me, really, anything in here, for example, cough. If someone has a cough, for example, you might look at it and think, okay, I've just contracted a cough from someone else. So you could look into that, excuse me, and look at it and say, okay, well, cough may mean that you're feeling overwhelmed with stress coming from other people, trying to cough up negative energy, feeling smothered or suffocated, being self-critical, blaming yourself and others for past choices, lack of self-love and nurturing. So as you can see, there's not one thing, there's not one, it's not like, well, it's just because, of this one. There's options there as what this cough may mean to you. And when I read that, I think, oh, I get it. I'm not taking care of myself now. I'm not giving myself self-nurturing. Therefore, what can I do to take better care of myself? All of a sudden, cough will start to ease. So is that the general idea behind the when you talk about the healing? It doesn't have to necessarily be a severe diagnosis. It can be I'm having, reoccurring problems with my toe, or I'm having this ongoing cough. I've had it for 6 months. I've been to the doctor. I've tried cough medicine. I've tried antibiotics. I still have this cough. What's going on? And that to me is when you can start looking at that wisdom and thinking, okay, bit of self-love and nurturing doesn't work. It's not going to hurt. In that instance of a cough, it's not going to make it any worse.
Absolutely. All symptoms, doesn't matter how big or how small, they brought on by some sort of emotional patterns or connected to some sort of emotional patterns in your life. And looking at what might be connected to your symptoms, chronic symptoms especially, is really absolutely necessary for anybody. Because when you go to, for example, like a doctor and get a diagnosis, get a treatment, like normally it's prescription of drugs or surgery, and you just go and take these drugs or go for surgery. But if you don't look at what might be brought this illness on, what is the real cause of illness. So you just mask the symptoms, you just mask the pain, you just eliminate the pain. But the real cause of the illness still stays in your body. And our body is really, like I said before, talking to us all the time. And during the lifetime, actually our biography becomes our biology. Our biography, it means the way we live our life, the beliefs we hold on to, becomes our biology. And the older you grow, the more your body records everything. So we are all living Bibles, every single person in the world. Like a living Bible. You can read the person through his or her pains and aches and symptoms and illnesses. And not looking at the emotional patterns which brought you to this diagnosis. I think it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.